I'm going to office hours. Okay.
Yeah,
good.
you're coming.
Okay.
So
we want to kind of flip the script and put you in our spot and make you super nervous. It's going to be
Gotcha.
really exciting.
I'm already freaking out.
I can tell you look so scared.
I'm honored you came to our show instead of the big networks that usually, I mean, this is kind of like blows my mind that we have you on the show.
Oh, please. I'm delighted to have you. Hold on.
Yeah, we are so honored.
I'm using I have a Shure. There's this company called Seven Sage that does bar prep. And they had me do a contracts class, bar prep and law school prep. So they sent me all this equipment to record it. So I now have a setup that I don't deserve.
I got this thing that looks like a lava lamp. That's by
nice.
HyperX. They make my gaming headphones too. So Taylor's an Instagram celebrity.
Oh no!
That's why
I was not.
shocked. I was shocked when she agreed to do a 2-contract show to do office hour.
No, I'm not.
I don't know. She's a contract student, right? Who would have realized that a couple years later she'd be a famous Instagrammer hosting this show, having you on as a guest? I mean,
amazing.
It's beautiful.
What are you known for, Taylor? What is your Instagram fame?
The only thing that I do on Instagram consistently, I mean, it's mostly just my life. It's nothing, but I do like makeup and stuff. So
cool.
I'm always doing like a new eye look or something.
It's a big market, and people get sponsored to
Big bucks.
Big bucks.
Hey guys, and welcome to our very first episode of Office Hours. Each week, we will be choosing a guest in the legal field to hang out with and get to know. Today, we have a very exciting guest for you all. He received his JD from Harvard Law, is a tenured associate professor of law at the University of Arizona James E. Rogers College of Law. He's published numerous articles relating to international law and technology. Please welcome Professor Andrew Keene Woods.
Thank you so much for having me here, you guys.
Thank
Professor
you for
Woods,
being here.
what a pleasure. So it wasn't the easiest task to we know your schedule's busy, but
I'm so sorry I had to reschedule. I apologize.
We totally get it.
The semester is crazy. It's always crazy. I can't help it. I always think I've got my classes under control. I've got my external obligations and my research projects under control. And then, a pandemic hits.
So we are going to play a fun game. The way this game works is you will have 60 seconds. We're going to ask you a series of questions. And so in the future, obviously you're competing with any of our future guests. So today you're our default winner because
you are the de facto champion as of today.
You don't have any competitors as of right now.
Yeah, I'll set the bar as high as I possibly can for the next.
Perfect. I love that attitude. So let's see how well you do. Chuck, are you ready?
I am ready.
Go. Favorite color?
Blue.
Favorite animal?
Dog.
Favorite movie?
I can't say a favorite movie. I don't have one. So many great movies.
Okay. Favorite snack?
Tacos.
Favorite beverage?
Used to be beer, now lemonade.
Okay. Netflix or Hulu?
Netflix.
Favorite song?
One favorite song. I don't have one.
Okay. Favorite actor?
I watched a movie last night with Keanu Reeves and I thought he was amazing, so I'm gonna go with that.
Okay. iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
YouTube or Twitch?
Neither.
Okay. Favorite video game?
Mario Kart.
Good
12
job.
questions in 60 seconds.
Sorry, I hesitated on some of those. I can't name a favorite movie. I mean, There
I'm
are
the
so
same
many
way.
grades.
But I do like to stump our guests, so
Yeah.
maybe it's like part of the game, part of the
Totally fair.
challenge.
Totally fair.
All right, so 12 would be the number to beat on the next episode. We'll see
Okay.
if you're gonna retain the title or if the next professor is gonna take it from you.
Okay, so you are a professor of law, and we kind of want to know what you are like outside of the classroom, what you do on a daily basis. Are you a normal human being, or are you a robot? So we have a ton of questions for you.
Yeah.
So do you think that students get to see the real you in class, or do you kind of like put on a little bit of a facade?
You know what? I think over time they see more and more of the real me. You know, it's hard when you are a robot to appear human.
It's so funny you mentioned that word because we're going to talk about robots. But
oh, good. I want to talk about robots. I mean, I was thinking, you know, it's complicated. If you're asking me whether I'm a robot, and I actually were a robot, and I was trying to trick you that I wasn't a robot, obviously I would tell you I'm not a robot. Right? so and none of us know whether we're robots or not. So I can't really answer the question like, am I a robot? But I can tell you whether I'm like or unlike the person I am in class. And I think I am over time becoming more, it's funny, like I think the first year I ever taught, I was super nervous and you know, trying to get a rhythm in class and wasn't sure I could connect with students. And I also had, it's a huge task to try to cover so much material, and you're trying to accomplish a bunch of different goals at once. You're trying to capture the range of, you know, there's a bunch of ranges of experiences and abilities in the classroom, especially with a really big class. You're trying to get people to talk, and if especially with a class like contracts, first semester of law school, you're trying to teach how to do the basic stuff, like read a case, separate and apart from, but on top of, you know, learning the actual substantive doctrine of contracts. And not everybody feels the same way about this, but I think I'm trying to cover both a bunch of theoretical things that I want you to understand about contracts, but also some of the doctrine that will be on the bar exam. Some people swing too much, from my taste, too much in the direction of theory, and some people swing too much in the direction of doctrine. I'm trying to get a mix of both. Forgive me, Taylor. What my answer to your question is, when I started teaching, the first time I stepped into a classroom maybe 10 years ago, there was a bigger delta, a bigger gap between the person I was outside of class and the person I was in class. Because I was trying to sort of fake it till you make it. I was trying to figure it out as I was going. And I was a relatively junior scholar. Today, although I still, you know, like everybody else, I'm trying to figure it out. I have evolved out of class to be more like my in-class persona maybe, and my in-class persona has maybe relaxed to be more like who I am outside of class. So I think there's been a convergence over time, whereas the first class 10 years ago, I was pretty different out of class. And maybe if like I ran into a student at the gym or a bar, I would be like, I can't see you out of class. You're not supposed to see who I am outside of class. Whereas today, it's like no big deal. So.
And how would you say that that's changed since starting on Zoom now? Do you think that's still the same?
What's weird? Yeah, that's a great question. Zoom is really, I think everyone assumed that Zoom would be really cold and impersonal, and therefore, it would be bad. And we all guessed it would be bad, and in fact, it has been bad in many respects. But it wasn't exactly bad in the way we anticipated. So I thought that Zoom would mean that I never got to know my students, and that we were all really cold and stilted, and there would never be any of the kind of you could never have kind of casual, it's still sort of true, you can't have as many sort of casual get to know you moments. But in many respects, Zoom is a much more intimate medium than the classroom, right? I mean, I'm in my house. Normally when I teach class, you don't get to see my house. And I'm in your house, and normally when I teach class, I don't get to see your house. So that already makes it completely different. So in one way, it's more intimate than the classroom setting, which is very sort of, performative and stilted, and also everyone's aware of everyone else in that space. Zoom has that same thing, but you're also all at home. So I just think it's like different more than it is, it's not just more or less, it's really just different. And I think the biggest thing from my perspective in terms of getting to know my students is that because Zoom is where we have class and we're all so sick of it, there isn't a good outside of Zoom space for getting to know your faculty and students, right? Like normally after class, I was just chatting with a student about this the other day. Normally after class, you would sort of wander out of the classroom into the courtyard. I'm speaking, of course, about the University of Arizona. Our colleagues in the north don't have this benefit, but the weather is gorgeous most of the year. We walk out of class and everyone's kind of hanging out, standing underneath the trees. And some people are talking about what they're going to get for lunch, but some people are talking about what was in the case that we just read. And, people are fired up about different issues. I feel like that's where community building really happens. Right. And that's the thing we're missing. That's the thing that bothers me the most about Zoom. It's not that I can't communicate the elements of promissory estoppel. I can communicate that over Zoom, and you could learn it over Zoom, but we don't get the chance to hang out in informal settings, and talk about, the basketball game or whatever it is. And that is essential to building a space where people feel like, they actually belong.
Right. I will say as a student, it is nice to not be on campus talking about law in break time. That is a really nice thing. Once I'm off Zoom, law is over, and then I have normal life. But I do miss the in-person, getting to know the professor on a more relatable level. So what do you do when you're not teaching, researching, writing books, being an intellectual?
Well, I would say I have a fairly boring life. So I like to run and swim and bike and play tennis. And I try to be physically active. And I feel like every year that I get older, I'm more aware of that. Like when I was 20, I wasn't aware of my body. I was just like, my body was this vehicle that got my brain places. And now I feel like I'm like very aware that I need to change the oil and get new tires, and like this thing needs to be maintained or it's not going to last very long. So I like to do that stuff. I have 2 beautiful but crazy dogs, and I take my dogs with my partner. We go to the dog park and let our dogs run around, sometimes off leash. I won't tell you where we go. What else? I'm a big fan of. I watch a lot of television. I think television is just an amazing storytelling medium, and I've watched more television in the last year than I ever thought I would. Because there's less time for hanging out with friends.
Yeah. So what are you binging right now?
We just finished Call My Agent, the French show about celebrity agents, talent agency in Paris, which is so good. It's on.
Is that on Netflix?
Definitely. It's on Netflix. It's totally worth your time.
Okay. So I'm going to take you back a little bit in time. I want to know what you were like as a law student.
Oh yeah, this is the question right here.
And you can even tell me, have you seen the movie Legally Blonde?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so I want to know, was that your experience? Was that Harvard for you? What Elle Woods went through, or very, very different? I want to know your experience.
And I would imagine that students would ask themselves, like, what do you think Professor Woods was like when he was in law school?
I do. I want to know, like, were you a gunner? Were you quiet?
I think I was a gunner without, I was a gunner in a way without knowing that I was a gunner. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't, it wasn't so much that I was like trying to outcompete anybody. I didn't see law school as a competition. I really didn't see, I didn't care to beat anyone. It was never, and actually didn't feel like it was very competitive. I just was so excited to be in law school. I loved it so much that I couldn't contain myself. I wanted to talk in class because I was so excited. I mean, not always. You know, I took property, for example. Who cares about property? But when I took classes that actually mattered, I was really excited about the material, and I would raise my hand. And I'm sure I annoyed the hell out of some people because I was just always had my hand raised. But it wasn't because I was trying to get an A, and I didn't always get A's. You know, there were some things that just like really excited me, and I had that, and that's why I ended up speaking a lot and found law school really fun and engaging. And that's why by the end of it, I was thinking, I don't really want to leave law school. I want to be in law school for the rest of my life, which is what I did.
We were talking about this concept of being a gunner before the show, and I'm like, I don't think it's a negative thing. It can be, but like, for instance, you strike me as someone that, like, your participation wouldn't annoy me. I think I'd be all over whatever you say, and I have so many friends that were the same way that graduated now. But if it was like on point in context of what we were talking about, I'm all about the engagement. I don't know, I can't speak for everyone else, but I think what bothers a lot of people is when it's totally off the wall, and it's like a hypothetical that's kind of like not even what we're talking about on this particular day. And
or like you're using the discussion to like further your opinions for some reason, like you just want to be heard on your deep passions for something.
If you feel like the conversation is being, you know, there's some idea that's being developed, and there are multiple points of view that need to be shared, and people are contributing to enrich the conversation. That's all to the good, right? But there are people who just want to hear themselves speak, and you know, that in and of itself is not great. So if someone's just speaking because they want to hear the sound of their own voice, or they're trying to win points with the professor, both of those dynamics are annoying, right? They're annoying to the students and they're annoying to the professor. But if they're smart comments or somebody's sharing an experience that actually enriches the conversation or puts it into context, then I think that's good.
Right.
Yeah. I love the engagements that we have during your cyber law class. I think it's really been going really well.
Oh, good.
And this is the first time you taught it.
Yes.
I'm sorry, did I say cyber law? I meant cybersecurity.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
We'll edit that part out, Jamie.
Cybersecurity is an interesting class. It's hard. I think it's a challenging class, because I was just describing, you know, to a friend, so much of what we do in law school is read cases, right? Judicial opinions. And everybody complains. Students complain, faculty complain about how much importance we place in judicial opinions, when of course statutes are really important, and the actual functioning of the law, like law enforcement, the implementation of the law, administrative agencies, all that stuff is really important, but sometimes it's boring. So I was thinking, like, in cybersecurity, you know, there are classes where we talk about FTC rulings, and the conversation is a little bit less dynamic than when we read a case where there's a story to be told about one party and another party and competing interests, and maybe that's just on us as law faculty to get used to adapt from thinking about complicated social dynamics and storytelling as being, you know, part of the administrative agency process and not just court disputes. But yeah, I have found that class to have its highs and its lows based on what we're reading, and it's also one of those classes where it's the thing that unites everything, like banking laws, health law, like HIPAA, you know, international criminal law stuff, domestic criminal law stuff, speech law stuff, securities regulations, FTC privacy rules. That's kind of like a grab bag, right? All that, those are different domains. And so you sometimes feel like you're looking at like domain A, domain B, domain C, and it's not clear what connects the different threads. And so the class doesn't necessarily have the same arc as other courses do, but it is interesting, and you deal with lots of cutting edge stuff that's very, you know, Chuck, every day we talk about like what's in the front page of the Wall Street Journal.
Oh yeah, all relevant. And that's a big plug, shamelessly plugging your cybersecurity class. Available, is it available next fall?
In the spring.
Available next spring. So 2Ls and 1Ls. Check it out. Are we ready for talking about robots? Because this is the part where
No, I'm not done.
Okay.
I still want to know. So you as a law student, we got to hear about how you are in a classroom.
Mm-hmm.
What about like outside of the classroom? Were you like a social butterfly? Did you go to like gala and all those events, or?
Outside of the classroom, I was in the library.
I'm not super surprised.
Wait, did they have a law prom, like a barrister's ball at your law school?
There was, yep, barrister's ball. Yeah, I went to one of them, I believe. But I found those events in law school, to be perfectly fair, I found the like big law school organized events to be kind of corny and not as fun as, like parties at somebody's house, smaller group gatherings. And that's what I did. If I was socializing with friends, it was like dinner parties, not really the law school had its prom. I forget what it was called. It might've been called law school prom. Wasn't like the highlight of my social life.
Okay. So you were social, you just weren't like big time event social.
Exactly.
More like intimate gathering. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
yeah, law school is where I learned to cook. I really like to cook, and law school is where I kind of figured out how to cook, and had lots of dinner parties, and went to lots of dinner parties.
What's your signature dish?
Signature dish. Well, I think the thing I'm best known for, the thing people come over and ask for, is a salad dressing that my father-in-law taught me. So, yeah, it's a salad dressing made from apple cider vinegar and soy sauce.
Perfection.
Ooh.
It's good. It's really good.
Well, yeah. we're not gonna disclose the recipe, but
I can't give you the full recipe. It's a family secret.
I wouldn't even want. Yeah, if it's a family secret, we should keep it that way.
I'm a fan of those Asian style salads and dressings, so that sounds amazing to me. Okay, well now we can get into robots. Since Chuck is so eager today.
Let's talk about robots.
So let's just, I have a very rudimentary understanding of robots. Tell me what you know. Are you afraid of robots? Do you think that robots are going to take over the world? Tell me your robot understanding.
Before you answer, we're going to do a really short clip. But this is about Boston Dynamics, their robots that they do that are very cutting edge.
Are you going to play the clip for us now?
Wow. Remember, Taylor, I was talking about like things work during rehearsal and then all of a sudden, yeah. This was supposed to take like 2 seconds and now screen two. You guys see that?
No.
Nothing?
Seems like the robots don't want you to share this video.
No. Well, I don't know how you professors do it with managing the screens and the chat and everything, but
I'm so
gratifying
to hear you say that. In my tech law and policy class, I teach the first few classes to get sort of like shared readings and shared vocabulary. And then I have teams of students pick a topic and present, and they run the class. And it has been such a silver lining of this year that I watch my students who have complained, I'm sure, about how crappy their professors are at managing Zoom, to watch two students get up and actually manage a class over Zoom. And every time I laugh, I say to them, like, please understand how pleasurable this is for me. It's way harder than it seems. And you think it's, but you have notes and you're trying to make sure all voices are heard, and you can only see so many faces on a screen. And there's a limit if you have a really big class. I mean, I taught a huge class in contracts in the fall, and even with dual monitors, you can only get, I think it's a Zoom setting, that you can only get 49 faces on one monitor. So you're inevitably doing like a scrolling while you're managing a PowerPoint and a chat and your lecture notes. It's madness.
And it's that curse. Like if you practice before class, it's always going to work perfect. And then during class, it's like, oh wait, that just worked.
If you have a video, for sure, there's like, I don't know, there's some fundamental law of physics that if you have a video you want to play and you're live recording, the audio won't work or something will happen, for sure.
Well, at the very least, maybe we'll create some kind of empathy among students for professors and what they go through in
Yes.
the class.
That's what we need.
We'll do that.
I've seen that video before, but the thing that video is not as terrifying to me as the one, I don't know if you've seen it. There's a video that again, Boston Dynamics put out of one of their dog robots. It's doing all these obstacle courses, and halfway through it's walking along, and a human comes up and kicks the dog.
Wow.
And the dog goes like scrambling back. You see it with its legs trying to like regain its balance. And it's terrifying because first of all, he kicks the dog really hard and the robot manages to like regain its balance and just keeps moving as if nothing is going to stop it, which is terrifying. And also it's terrifying because it's a machine that has no feelings, and you have this deep gut instinct. Like I felt like I watched someone kick an actual dog, right? I felt terrible for it, but it didn't have a feeling. So, that's a complicated human robot interaction, right? And actually brings to mind all sorts of interesting questions, like should we regulate the abuse of machines? Should we criminalize the abuse of machines? Now, they don't feel anything, but it's ugly human conduct, right? And so you regulate it not because of its effect, but because of what it represents. We don't want to live in a society where people abuse things, even inanimate objects. I think we have there are a lot of questions about the human-robot interaction, human-robot experience. And we live with like robots all the time, right? Like your phone is an appendage basically of your arm now. And we're just starting to figure out what kinds of norms and morals and laws should apply to that human-robot interaction. And I have actually been, I don't know if you know this, Chuck, but is that why you asked me this question? But I've been doing this research project on people's fear of machines.
Very subtly, and we didn't talk a lot about it in class, but you mentioned something about robots, and then I wanted to kind of do this segment where we talk about whether we should fear robots. Or like, I know that people have this inherent fear based on Terminator and whatever movies.
Yeah.
And yeah, it sounds kind of scary, like android persons among us, because we've seen the sci-fi movies. But is it that scary? Should people have this fear, or is it all just unwarranted?
Yeah, I think we have to worry about two things simultaneously, and we are already naturally primed to worry about one, but not the other. So I think we need to worry about machines gone wrong, the rogue machine, but I think that's really a long-term question, not a near-term question. The idea of the machine deciding for itself to do something it wasn't programmed to do, that's theoretically possible, but it seems like everything I've read suggests that's a problem that's very far down the road. And we should have all sorts of safeguards built in place to deal with that problem. But we will, because we are already so primed to distrust machines. I think the other problem that we haven't given much thought to is, what about human reluctance to use machines, algorithms, robots, when they have all sorts of extraordinary life-enhancing capability? So the simplest explanation for that is self-driving cars, right? Self-driving cars, now there's all sorts of open questions, and I don't want to overclaim about their ability. But let's just assume that self-driving cars were able to drive today 1.5 times better than a human, okay? 50% better than a human. Would we allow them on the roads? No way, right? Every year, roughly 40,000 in the United States alone, 40,000 people are killed in car crashes at the hands of a human driver, and most of the time it's human error that caused the accident. So humans cause 40,000 deaths driving on the roads. If we replaced all those drivers with robot drivers and they were 50% better, robots would cause 20,000 deaths on the roads. Would we allow it? No way. When Uber was testing their self-driving car and one person crashed, we shut the program down.
I think that was in Arizona, right?
Which was in Arizona, it was in Tempe. We demand perfection from machines, and we are much more tolerant of risk from humans. And I think we should be much more tolerant of risk from machines, because of course, if we have life-saving technology, like if we can improve the safety of automobiles by 50%, That would be massive. That would be a huge public health intervention. But we won't accept it because we demand perfection. And every year that we don't roll out such a technology while we wait for it to become perfect, people are dying.
Right.
And I think that same story can be told in lots of other contexts where you have algorithms and robots that are really good, but not perfect. And we are demanding perfection and sitting on better than human, but not perfect technology. That worries me. So I with some co-authors are working on an empirical project to try to figure out under what conditions people are reluctant or willing to trust a machine, and where machines make mistakes. And there's now a growing literature around what's called algorithm aversion, where people are averse to trust an algorithm, especially after they see it make a mistake.
It's incredible. When will this project, or is it an ongoing project, or?
It's a huge ongoing project. So I have a law review article that's coming out in the Colorado Law Review about sketching out some of the law and policy implications of our reluctance to trust machines. And I look at a bunch of different domains. So self-driving cars is one, but in every context where people consider algorithms, they make all these demands that are not made of humans, or they're described in ways that suggest that there isn't an alternative, which is a very poor performing human. So for example, algorithms in criminal justice, people say, well, the algorithm isn't perfectly transparent, or the algorithm might be biased in certain ways. And those are absolutely critical concerns that we should take seriously. But remember, the alternative is a human judge. Human judges are not transparent, and they're racist, and there is a system, a long-standing set of concerns around human judges.
Right.
I don't mean to single out any individual judge, but our criminal justice system is, as a whole, deeply problematic and full of bias, right? Along a number of dimensions. Race is just one of them. We should be excited about technologies that have the possibility of changing that. And the fact that those technologies have imperfections should not end the conversation, right? And yet that is the sense I get from much of the literature and the scholarly debate is that algorithms are bad because they are biased, or bad because they are not transparent, instead of how do they compare to a similarly situated human? And by the way, it's not just how are they today, what is their prospect for improvement in the future, right? And human judges, we've known about the bias problem in human judges for a long time. How is the track record? Like, are they getting better? Not by much, not as far as I can tell, just like human drivers are not getting a lot better, right? Whereas machines have the promise of becoming much, much better. So I actually think, and that's a complicated risk calculus. With another colleague, I've been thinking about a paper. We're sketching out a paper that we haven't yet written about how you think about that trade-off between human versus robot, right? If you switched from, think about airplane pilots, right? Switch from a system where there are human pilots to machine pilots, and we've basically made that shift. You overall increase safety because the machine makes way fewer errors, but you increase the risk of catastrophic failure in certain respects. So there are examples of airplane crashes where the machine encounters something it's not designed to encounter and everybody dies, and that's like a big loss that was there because we embraced the machine, and maybe overly embraced the machine, even though. And that might not have happened if there had been a perfectly skilled human pilot at the helm. So that's a new problem, even though overall there have been fewer deaths in airplanes because of autopilot.
Well, and I think you could make that same argument for human drivers. Obviously, machine drivers of vehicles wouldn't have DUIs, or where that's an inherently human problem of driving is the DUIs. So machines would eliminate that completely. So it's kind of like a trade-off. And I think a lot of it has to do with fear of just something new. Everyone's so afraid of new things and changing their old ways. And that's really interesting. I'm excited about that for you.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it is fear of the new, and fear of the other. It's hard to disentangle what it is, right? Like, is it familiarity? Because with some fears go away with exposure, right? And then that means that really was a fear of the new, right? If it's no longer new and you don't fear it, then you just feared it because it was new. But some technologies people seem to fear the more they see them, the more they hang around them. And that, and this has been shown in a bunch of different contexts, but they basically like, the more you're around something, the more eerie and creepy it feels. And that makes me think there's something more going on than just the novelty. But we'll see. It's probably going to end up being the case that we react to machines very differently in different contexts, right? So we'll end up having to do research in different domains. And I've got a work done with a colleague about how patients feel in healthcare settings where, you know, you have a choice of a human doctor or a robot doctor, or you go to the human doctor and they have a choice. Do they send you to a specialist who's a human, or do they send you to a specialist lab that's where the diagnosis is done by a machine, right? And people are pretty divided about how they feel. And if you tell them, even if you tell them the machine is more accurate, you'll get a more accurate diagnosis if you visit the lab that has artificial intelligence. Still a huge portion, it's roughly 50% of people will prefer a less performing, less accurate human doctor, which to me is crazy, but people have, you know, preferences, and they want things like warm human interaction more than they want accuracy in diagnosis.
I was thinking that, like, when it comes to medicine and doctors, you know, that's like a huge part of their role is like their bedside manner.
Yep.
And that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Love it. So you are working on this Colorado Law Review Journal article. What else do you have going on in the future?
Well, that separate from that is the study about artificial intelligence in healthcare and how people feel about it. And in particular, we're looking at how diverse populations feel about it. So comparing how people from different racial backgrounds, people from different age groups feel about the use of technology in healthcare. What else? I have a book project and a couple of law review articles connected to the global regulation of the internet. So that's what I've been writing about the most over the last 10 years is cross-border aspects of regulating the internet, which comes up in a number of areas. I mean, obviously speech, law enforcement access to data. There are many, many ways in which our legal system is designed and built around sovereign states, right? Which are in many ways connected to territorial spaces. And the internet feels like it doesn't have a territory. It feels like it's global and transborder. And that's basically an illusion. It really is deeply territorial in many respects. But there are lots of interesting questions that need to be worked out about how we map a system of state law that is built around sovereignty and territory to a global network that wants in many ways and is efficient and valuable because it is transnational. So I'm writing a book about the global regulation of the internet and how different states are getting it right and wrong. And that has implications for privacy and speech and all sorts of other things.
Interesting. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Anything new for TechLaw Arizona?
TechLaw, well, I can say a word about what TechLaw does because TechLaw is a really neat, novel program. So we are at the University of Arizona, I believe we have the biggest, as a portion of our student body, I think we have the biggest law and technology program in the country. We have about 10% of law student body are TechLaw fellows now. Wow. And the TechLaw Fellowship is a full ride scholarship to law school for students who have science and technology backgrounds who can then come to law school. And our hope is that they will go out into the world and take interesting jobs in industry and government and non-government organizations where they will be uniquely positioned to both speak to engineers and scientists working on the cutting edge of technology issues, but also lawyers, judges, and regulators. And when we've talked to our alum at Microsoft and Amazon and Google and biotech companies and at the government, they say there's this real need for people who can sort of speak the language of the technology and also speak the language of the law. There just aren't enough people like that. And the law school programs that exist so far have tended to try to attract people with tech background based on their interest, but they haven't really put their money behind it. Whereas we are saying, you have a serious technical background, come to us, we will give you a full ride to law school. and build a legal education around your technical expertise and interest. And then we'll send you off into the world. And we haven't yet graduated a class of tech law fellows, so I can't say how successful they are, but they're an amazing group of students, and they're thriving academically and have all sorts of really interesting summer job experiences. And I expect that they will do great things in the future. And I've always said that the program will be a success when tech law fellow graduates and takes a job somewhere and calls me up and says, I want to hire a tech law fellow. Tech law fellow hiring, past tech law fellow hiring current tech law fellow, for me, I can like hang up my hat.
That's incredible. I love that. That's very.
We'll put the if you have information on how students that are interested in the tech law fellowship,
that'd be great.
I'm sure they can Google it, but we'll put the link in the description just to help them out. So I think it's an awesome program, and it's relevant to what we're experiencing every day with advances in technology never seen before, and I think it's awesome what you're doing with that.
Cool, thank you.
Well, we want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day to meet with us, tell us about your life. Yeah, let's give you a round of applause.
You guys are sweet. I was really nice chatting with you, and I hope you all the success with the podcast. I think it's a cool idea. I think everything you can do to make law school, fun and exciting and interesting, and also demystifying. I mean, to the extent that this is consistent with Chuck's bar stories, I think all the bullshit around the law being this inaccessible thing that's scary and distant, you need to get rid of that. I mean, that's not what I'm doing this for. I find the law interesting. It's interesting and it's important, and it's our system of justice, so it's like hugely important. And but it doesn't help that there are people who try to make it seem scary or or inaccessible.
I think we wanted to demystify the law professor of today. It's totally different than like the paper chase, or I don't know if students even watch that anymore, but we wanted the show kind of like those tabloids where it's like, oh, celebrities are people too. It's like law professors are just like us.
That's funny.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode. Be sure to like and subscribe to the Bar Stories Project's YouTube channel so that you don't miss out on any new content.